Okay, we're back and we're getting into the fun stuff. To understand how a global cycle programs the human experience, we must look at the locks. These are the 8 functional constructs that define the boundaries of our reality. They act as the software of the age, dictating how we love, how we lead, and what we value. These locks are divided into 2 categories. The love locks, which define our external expression, and the direction locks, which define our internal orientation. So these locks make up the framework of our reality. So we have the way, which is the fundamental point of existence. It is the primary way of life that defines the era. The temple, the context through which we connect to source or the divine. It is the sacred space where we do our most important work. The nature, the specific facet of human nature that becomes the most relevant, expected, or normalized by the collective. The pattern, the daily rhythm and theme we orientate our lives around, the priority of our habitual movement. The witness, the lens of memory. It is how we understand our past and store our collective history. The leader, the specific qualities we are programmed to trust and expect from those in positions of power. The example, the gold standard or template for the ideal human. It is what we are all expected to strive for or adhere to. And then the plan, the ultimate goal, excuse me, or destination of the age. It is the underlying why behind the movement of the species. In the 2027 shift, the keys, the specific gates that fit into these locks, are being swapped out. This is why everything from how we view the family to how we define leadership is undergoing a total mechanical reset. For over 400 years, the global consciousness has been held within the specific framework of the cross of planning. This era began roughly in 1615, has been defined by a very specific set of energetic constraints. Its primary function was to move humanity out of raw survival and into a state of collective security through societal structuring and hierarchical resource management. The energetic software of 1615 to 2027, the cross of planning, the locks of this era were programmed to favor the building of institutions. We were energetically rewarded for creating systems that could outlast the individual. Governments, corporations, and massive educational infrastructures. The underlying motivation was the safety of the group. To achieve this, the locks prioritized tribal dynamics. We were taught that the collective was always more important than the individual parts. This era perfected the bargain. Everything from food to energy to labor was managed from a top-down hierarchy. We built the Maya, the complex, detailed illusion of a global civilization that required constant maintenance and collective agreement. We are now at the tail end of this cycle. The profound shift occurring around 2027 marks the moment when these collective and tribal keys are being withdrawn. The organizational structure that felt like an immutable law of nature for 4 centuries is now beginning to dissolve, making way for a paradigm where the individual becomes the new center of gravity. This 400-year cycle has been categorized by the establishment and maintenance of the modern collective structures that define modern civilization. Building a functional society through planning, agreements, and defined roles, it's the era of the modern nation-state, industry, and institutionalized governance. The underlying energy is a tribal bargain focused on support and resources, and individuals find their security and resources by fulfilling their duty within the collective, family, community, corporation, or nation. And we see resource management and social organization that tends to be hierarchical with an emphasis on fulfilling expected societal roles. As the background frequency of the planning era dissolves, we are fundamentally leaving behind the keys that served as the guiding principles for modern civilization. These energies were once the very foundation of our safety, but they are now losing their power as the primary organizing forces of the collective. The dissolving foundations are the way, Gate 37, family and friendship. For 4 centuries, Gate 37 has dictated the way of life. This is the tribal energy rooted in the solar plexus, focused on agreements, community support, and the shared responsibility of the mouths to feed. The family or the tribe was the fundamental security unit. If you were in, you were safe. This model of life, rooted in obligation and tribal loyalty, is now diminishing as the sole viable path. And we look at the temple, Gate 40, representing aloneness and deliverance. This gate has served as the temple, the context through which we connected to our sense of purpose. It represents the bargain of the will center, the necessity of laboring for the collective in exchange for the right to be alone, to rest and be supported by the tribe. Our sacred space was earned through our work. The 3740 channel is the literal glue of the cross of planning. It created the social contract. As these keys are removed from the global locks, the sense of duty that held families, companies, and communities together is evaporating. We're moving away from a world where you must belong to a tribe to survive, toward a world where the tribe can no longer guarantee your survival. The remaining keys of the planning era provided the cognitive and behavioral infrastructure that allowed us to build the modern world. These gates represent the mental and physical framework that subsidized the massive expansion of human civilization over the last 400 years. The nature, Gate 9, the taming power of the small. This sacral energy has been the dominant nature of humanity. It provided the hyper-focused attention to detail to execute complex plans and manage the minute data points required for global trade and tribal safety. The pattern was represented by Gate 16, the Gate of Skills. As the pattern of the age, this throat energy prioritized the repetition and mastery of techniques. It is the gate of the expert. The collective rhythm was orientated toward learning skills that could build and maintain the physical and social infrastructure of the world. The supporting framework was inspiration in detail, Gate 61 and 62. This was the mental engine that allowed us to visualize a goal and then name every part of it so it could be shared and manifested. Gate 32, continuity. This fueled the era through the instinct to preserve what works, ensuring that institutions remain stable over generations. And Gate 42, this managed the life cycle of collective growth, ensuring that once a process was started, it was pushed through to completion within the tribal hierarchy. As these keys leave the locks, we are seeing a global loss of focus. The passion for mastering skills to serve a larger system is being replaced by an urgency for immediate individual action. The mental and physical glue of detailed planning is losing its adhesive quality, signaling the end of the era of the expert. The The transition we are living through is not merely a change in social preference, it is a change in the background frequency of the planet. The shift is marked by the literal mutation of the solar plexus, and a movement from into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. We are moving from the us of the collective to the me of the individual. The mechanics of the new theme, moving from dependence to sovereignty. The energy is withdrawing from tribal structures and collective bargaining. We are increasingly being challenged to find our own inner truth and direction, completely independent of the traditional roles defined by the cross of planning. In the era of the sleeping phoenix, survival and fulfillment are less dependent on your place in a community hierarchy and more dependent on your self-reliance and personal resonance. To visualize this, imagine that the lock represents the established energy of the planning era. The key represents the new energy of the sleeping phoenix, entering that construct. The primary organizing forces we have relied on are being unlocked and replaced. The unlocking is the way, gate 37. The tribal energy of the family and the mouth defeat is diminishing. The bargain where the family or the tribe as the fundamental security unit is being replaced. We're unlocking the temple. Gate 40. The concept of aloneness as a reward for laboring for the tribe. The work, rest, cycle of the will center is dissolving. We are no longer connecting to source through the context of our exhaustion after providing for the collective. The emphasis on these specific planning energies as our primary organizing force is dissolving. We are being pushed out of the tribal nest to discover what it means to be a sovereign, authentic individual in a world that no longer guarantees collective support. As we move toward individual empowerment, we must look at the logical keys that are being removed from the global constructs. For 400 years, human nature and our daily patterns were defined by the need to maintain a complex shared infrastructure. That energetic support is now being pulled back to the individual. The unlocking the nature, gate 9. The collective nature was once defined by splenic focus and attention to the small details required for tribal survival. As this key is removed, the era of massive detailed collective planning loses its energetic foundation. We are moving away from the perfection of the system and toward the power of the presence. Unlocking the pattern, gate 16, the gate of skills. Our daily pattern was previously orientated around the throat's ability to repeat and master skills for the benefit of social infrastructure. The collective drive to be an expert for the sake of the tribe is fading. The pattern of life is shifting from learning to do toward being in the now. The collapsing support pillars, inner truth and detail, gate 62, 61, and 62, the mental framework that allowed for the naming and organizing of every collective detail is losing its grip. Gate 32, continuity, the deep-seated fear of failure that fueled the preservation of institutions is being replaced by a more radical individual survival instinct. And gate 42, endings and increase, the structured process of completing collective cycles within a hierarchy is giving way to a more fluid, mutative way of finishing things. The program is no longer interested in maintaining the social infrastructure of the cross of planning. As these keys are withdrawn, the individuals who relied on these logical tribal systems for their sense of security will feel a profound loss of focus and competence. This is the mechanical preparation for the rise of the sleeping phoenix. The constructs of the new era for the 2027 shift represents a wholesale replacement of the keys that fit into the foundational locks of our reality. We are moving from a world built on collective agreements to one built on individual spiritual resonance. This isn't just a social change, it's a mechanical swap of the planetary background frequency. The way moving from agreements to abundance. In the cross of planning, the way was gate 37, the family. In the new era, the way becomes gate 55, the spirit. Direction is no longer found through the tribe, but through inner spiritual abundance, emotional truth, and personal inspiration. You move from, am I supported by the group, to, am I in alignment with my spirit? In the temple, from bargaining to bonding. The temple context, the context for our connection to Source was previously gate 40, aloneness, the space of rest and solitude earned only after working for the tribe. In the sleeping phoenix, the temple becomes gate 59, sexuality and intimacy. Sacredness is found in the deep bonding and intimacy required for mutation. The temple is no longer a place you go to recover from work. It is the honest energetic exchange that breaks down barriers between individuals. The nature from detail to momentum. Human nature was defined by gate 9, focus, requiring meticulous action to detail to secure the collective, and the new nature is gate 34, power. We are shifting into an era of pure individual power, raw energy, and personal momentum. The focus is no longer on the small details of a plan, but on the great capacity of the individual to act, and the pattern from articulation to presence. The pattern or daily rhythm of gate 16 skills based on mastering and articulating techniques for the community. The new pattern is gate 20, the now. The rhythm of life is now about being in the moment and expressing one's truth immediately. The need to plan or articulate for the collective is replaced by the simple, powerful requirement of being present. The underlying message of this shift is a profound movement from external agreements and resource management to internal, emotional, spiritual, and individual power. We are witnessing a fundamental internalization of authority. Before 2027, survival was about securing a seat at the tribal table, gate 37, and upholding your end of the bargain, gate 40. If you played your role in the hierarchy, the system provided your security. After 2027, it's all about the sovereign self. Survival is about individualized awareness and self-sovereignty, gate 55. It is driven by mutative emotional truth and raw personal power, gate 34. The structure of reality itself moves from a focus on collective planning, from focus on skills, to a focus on individual powerful presence, power in the now. This is the mechanical definition of the sleeping phoenix, a humanity that is no longer asleep in the homogenized collective, but awake as unique, self-guided passengers navigating a world without safety nets.